Hi and welcome to my PlayHouse. I am still guessing errors here, guest card and everything, and today we're gonna go look at Lenovo's BladeCenter, and they have one of the new SN550 blades for that. Well, new and new, it's a year old, but let's go check it out. They actually have a BladeCenter on display here. They have this awesome showroom for data center here, and they have the BladeCenters down here. But I have one prepared to have a closer look at in the workshop. So here we have the Lenovo BladeCenter. They actually call it ThinkSystem Enterprise. I kind of call it a BladeCenter, but well, that might just be me. It has room for 14 servers. We can see that the two bottom one here is occupied, and that's actually the ones that we're gonna be having a closer look at. But now that we have a BladeCenter at our disposal here, we might as well have a closer look and see what else it comes with. It's a rather big box and heavy as hell, so it's a 2, 3, 4 person job to move it around. We have a lifter to put it just on the table here, so that nobody had to break their back on this. It's not worth it. It is possible to manhandle it, but it's not pleasant at all. This BladeCenter is mostly empty. All of these are just fillers. There's a little locking mechanism here. So number 13, we can pull that out and we will see that it's just an empty tray. We can kind of look into the back plane here and see there is connection for power and management, and there is 2 big beefy I/O connectors back there as well. The back plane of this is very passive. There is more or less nothing on the back plane. The thought is that nothing should be able to break in a BladeCenter that would make it necessary to shut down everything else. So it's thought as a redundant solution all the way. The backplane is a single point of failure, so it's very important to not have any critical components on there that can fail. So more or less it's only connectors that are on there. Blade servers are available. This is a normal blade server size. They are also available in dual size blade servers. So if we take out 2 of these fillers, it's possible to remove the center of this, and that makes it possible to put in a full size blade or a dual size, I'm not sure. And in here you can fit a 4-way server. And it's possible to have like a 4-way server up here, have 2 normal servers, and well, you can have big servers and you can have smaller servers in a mix kind of. Up here there's an air intake, a tiny slot here for additional air to be pumped through. The BladeCenters are made so that they can operate in very high temperature, like a data center where the ambient temperature is like 43, 45 degrees Celsius, and still be able to operate. Same thing is available at the bottom. There is also an extra air intake slot down here that is able to supply more air. The first models they made of this did not have this. This was put in a later review. Let's go to the back. Over here is the business side of things. There are 6 very beefy power supplies here. These are 2,500 watt power supplies, and they look like this. It's kind of a big version of the server power supplies, so this BladeCenter has quite a bit of redundancy built in. It can work with less power supplies than this, but this one is fully equipped with power supplies. I believe that also smaller power supplies are available, but the price difference is really not that big. So 6 power supplies here, and power supplies here, all the way from the top to the bottom. Then we have room for 4 switches here. There's a switch here, 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 and here. And those are interconnected with the blade servers that you put in here. So blade number 1 and blade number 2 will go in the standard port of the blade. We will see that when we get into it. The blade server has they have a normal port and they have an expansion port. And 1 and 2 goes into the normal port. That means that if you have something in port number 1, you will have one connection going to switch 1, and you will have another connection going to switch 2, so that you have a redundant solution. That is almost always the network that goes onto there. 3 and 4 here can be used as additional network connections or be a fiber channel switch. Then we have a middle thing here, which does not look like it's something that ought to come out. And then we have fan blowers here, big beefy things. Redundant fan blower in each of them, and there are 8 of those. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we have some smaller fan blowers up here, and there are 2 of those. It looks like that, well, it really looks like they thought that, well, we can just fit in a couple more. Over here we have the management adapters. On the Flex chassis, these are called the CMM. There's a CMM1 down here and a CMM2 up here. And for a redundant solution, you have one management here and one management here. And you cable those up separately, and one of them will do the job, but the second one is the hot spare. So we are gonna be having a closer look at this ThinkSystem. And down here, you're not able to see that. It's the SN550, and this is the newest generation for this BladeCenter. On the front of it, we have a USB 3 connection here. It doubles as a management port, so if you have an Android or an iOS, you can connect your telephone here, and with an app on your telephone, you'll be able to communicate with the Xclarity management in the Blade server. Also, there is kind of a communication port here, and that goes out to a screen and a monitor and some USB. We can see that over here. This is the connector that goes in there, and it comes out. You have even a serial connection here. You have a screen connection that could go to a monitor, and you have 2 USB 2 connections going out here, and this one goes into a keyboard. So you pop this in and you get connections to your Blade server. Next we have a couple of hard drive bays here. It's pretty normal to have room for 2 hard drives, and you can put in anything from SATA to SAS or NVMe drives. This drive, so let's check that. It's a regular Intel solid state drive. 480 gigabytes. So very nice. Next thing, we have a power on button, and then we have a maintenance button here. Nice. And then we have some pop outs. You can have some serial number, and you can have some of your own data there. So yeah, if you wanna have what system is this running, this could be your web server or database server or something, and it might be helpful to have that there. It's not a good idea to put a label over here, because there's not a lot of surface here for the server to suck in air, and if you put a big label here, well, you might overheat it if it's a server that does a lot of work. So to pop it out, there is a little lever here, and it's very easy. You just pull that and push it out, and it pops right out. So easy peasy. Here is the server on the table. It's not very big. It's a nice one. And here we have the back of it, and we can see that this is the management adapter, a connection for management. This is for power. This is the expansion card. I think it might be. I think this is the expansion. We'll see that when we get in there. And this might be the primary one. We will check that. Nothing on this. Well, there's a serial number on the side. The bottom of it, there's a label there. Tells us how much. Ooh, it uses a lot of power. 12 volt, 60 amps. Yikes. So yeah, you could run this from a car battery. Just have the problem of connecting that. On the top here we have some service information. There's a QR code for support on this server, maybe to get some more information. Activation is required. There's some light path diagnostics. I think that's on the inside when we get in there. To access that, you actually have to power down the server and pop it out and press in the power button, and if anything was wrong with the server, it will light up. Then there's an overview of the system board in here. A lot of the components are pinned out. What is everything? It's very nice. Then there is a little bit about how to put this together, different DIMMs and sockets, and which order the memory is to go in, some notes, something over here about putting in I/O adapters. To do that right, make sure to remove all the blue thingies before you do that so you don't break anything. Then we have the M.2 backplane, which I also have an example of that we can have a look at, and that goes in here, and there are some warnings here. Don't put the server in without the top. Okay, so it releases on this bottom here, and there's a little press that way, and that pops off. Nothing on the back. So here is the server. This is a full server, but tiny. Down here is the light path diagnostics that we just saw. Don't expect that there would be anything. I think the server has been off for quite a while, but if it had been recently powered on and there was something wrong, let's say that remove this air buffalo, let's say a RAM block had failed, well, when we press the power button, it would tell us over here that it was a memory error, and there is actually small LEDs down on the system board near the memory blocks, so it would be able to light up which memory block has failed. So that is pretty good for diagnostics. The server has room for 2 CPUs. The first one here, we can see that this heatsink is smaller than this one. It might be so that the airflow, some of the air will go through this one and the air will be heated up, and therefore a bigger heatsink is needed on the next one because that is further down through the airflow. That's my theory anyway. It might also be that they have just changed one of these. This server is for the new Intel Scalable CPUs, so you can put in 2 of those, and I do believe that it can handle the CPUs all the way up to the 28 cores ones. There might be some other limitations that if you put in 2 of those CPUs, there might be other stuff that you can't do. I'm not really aware of that. If you should need that much power, you would have to consolidate with Lenovo and ask them how to do that. And 24 slots of memory should be able to handle 3 terabytes of RAM. To get there, you do actually need some of the very high-end CPUs, the ones with an M after the CPU number. The M stands for memory, and that means that the CPU can handle 1.5 terabytes of memory, where the normal CPUs can only handle, well, only 768 gigabytes of memory. So if it's 2 of the normal CPUs, well, the server will handle 1.5 terabytes of RAM. That is fully occupied with 64 gigabyte RAM blocks. So to get up to 3 terabytes of RAM, you would have to put in 128 gigabyte blocks, which are fairly expensive still. Well, unless you're watching this video in 3 years, where it might be the normal RAM block. So yeah, good priced RAM is the 32 gigabyte blocks and the 64 gigabyte blocks. 128 gigabyte blocks, bloody expensive. So down here we have the BIOS battery. It's the usual 3-volt battery. It's the CR2032 that you can buy in, well, almost any shop nowadays. Over here is another battery, and that's most likely to power this light on diagnostics panel here. So if there is any problem, well, that will keep that powered for some amount of time. Here we have the backplane of the hard drive, and if we just pop those out a little bit, we will see that the backplane is actually replaceable. This is a backplane that supports NVMe drives. I have another one here, it's just like it. Unfortunately, I only have the good backplanes. I don't have any ordinary SATA/SAS backplanes, but this is interchangeable. So also another solution where you have 4 1.8 inches hard drive have been available. I don't know if they still are in this model, but it might be needed to change the backplane for those as well. So pop that in. Did I do that right? Seems okay. So now we can pop the drive. We can start with the bottom one, and you can see that. Pop the drives in again. and the top one there, back in place. Down here we have room for the M.2 boot device, and I have one of those here. This is a single one. This is room for one M.2 SSD. You put that in here, it's gonna be right there, and then you pop that in and it goes into that slot right there. Apparently it has a slot here that goes into those two arms, and you pop that in. And I don't have a drive in there, so it's not gonna be able to boot anywhere, but that's how it works. So that would be the boot device. Then you could have a cache drive. You could have a really good NVMe SSD here, and then you could have a 6 terabyte SAS drive underneath that, and you would have a really good server for multi-purposes of, well, fast data and a lot of it. So cool. Let's go further back. Are we missing anything? I think we are still good. Still good. Back here we have different options for I/O. This is the primary one and this is the expansion one. So we could just try and pop this one out. Let's see. Turn those around. And we should be able to pop that out. It's a big beefy connector that is down there. So this is more or less a network card. A big beefy Emulex network card here. I am not sure what this is. It does have a number here somewhere. We could probably put in the full number here and we would be able to find out what this is. It's from last year. So this would, let's just say that this is a fiber optic connection. It might actually be, I'm not sure. So that would go in here. Not sure if it could go over there, but it has to go into the right slot, because this slot over here goes into switch number 1 and 2, and this slot down here goes into slot number 3 and 4. So you would put in something here, and this would have 2 or 4 connections, and if it had 2 connections, one would go to switch number 1 and one would go to switch number 2. If it had 4 connections, well, 2 connections would go to each switch. You might put your own network card in here if you have special preferences, if it had to be an Emulex card for some reason, but there is actually a network card built into the system and you can access that through this connector here. So this one pops in. It has some screws that you have to screw down, and you get those connections out that way, just like this one would have connections at the same location. So the SN550 actually have built-in 4 ports of 10 gigabit Ethernet on the system board. In some areas of the world you get this fiber connect along with the server, and in some areas of the world you have to order this separately, but it's built in on the system board, and in most of the world they choose to supply you this, and in other parts of the world you have to separately order this little periscope fiber connect thingy that pops right in there and brings out those 4 10 gigabit ports to the back of the server. That's 4 Intel X722 network ports that you get out there, so it comes with a built-in Intel network card. Second, over here you can of course add even more network ports, or you can add fiber channel network if needed. We just check what kind of RAM we have here. Let's see, we have some Samsung, but Lenovo branded. These are 64 gigabyte blocks, 2666 megahertz. Holy, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of those. It's a pretty well occupied little server here. With the Intel Scalable CPUs, you have to balance the CPUs correctly to get the most performance out of them. If it's out of balance, performance will go down, and that's what they have done here. The CPU has 6 memory channels. Each of those memory channels has 2 memory slots, and they have put 1 in each of those memory channels, and therefore the CPU is in balance. Plus they have put the same amount in each channel, which is also needed for it to be in balance. If you want to extend this with more memory and still be in balance, you will have to add 6 more slots to this CPU. That's where it becomes quite expensive. So if you want to expand this server with more RAM, you more or less have to double it up. So as this server has 768 gigabytes of memory, well, if you want to expand it and get maximum performance out of it, you will have to put in 1.5 terabytes of RAM. Then maybe performance is not the biggest issue, then it might be your wallet that is an issue. So I just took a second to Google this adapter here, and it's an Emulex 2-port 16 gigabit fiber channel adapter. So let's put that back in. It's probably expensive. Press to install. Cool. This one was a spare part. We don't put that in. And we have this air muffler. We better put that in as well. Okay. And pop this back in. So a company like Arrow has expensive equipment like this standing around for companies to lend them and do POC, proof of concept. The idea is that you can borrow this for your company, test if it works, and then go out and buy it. So you might be able to persuade them to lend you this for 14 days or a month, or well, whatever deal. Depends on how big a customer you are and how likely it is that you will actually buy this afterwards. I have borrowed a box like this for my work at some point where we were looking at a very big Citrix solution. So we borrowed a Flex system from Arrows, and we also borrowed a competing brand to find out which one was best. This wasn't a big problem because that order came to about $2 million, so it wasn't a problem to get to borrow some equipment to test it out. I would have liked the Flex system. It was unfortunately not my decision. But the big question is, how do I get it out into the car? And is anyone gonna see me? I'll figure that out. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again. And have a really nice day. Bye bye.